Assalamu alaikum and a very good day to you all. My name is Sherifa Musa Deji and I want to present this research paper, the analysis of theoretical research in Sukuk Islamic security. This research article was submitted for the Kedah International Zakat Conference 2025. My presentation outline will start with the study background, and I will go through the objective, methodology, findings, and conclusion and recommendation. First of all, let's try to understand what Sukuk is. Sukuk are bonds, Islamic Sharia compliant bonds. They are actually certificates with an underlying asset issued to investors. The certificate should reflect the true ownership of an asset, okay, and it should also represent proportionate value of the relevant assets. Looking at the slide, you could see the demonstration, the picture showing how the issuer or the originator issues the certificate to the investors, and the investor, they also holding the certificate can at any time, whether the originator or the issuer they are bankrupt, they can actually go liquidate their asset, because Sukuk bonds should be a profit and sharing sharing scheme. It should be both parties will share the profit, and just wait they will also bear the risk involved in it, without anyone denying of the benefit or the challenges or the risk being a huge body into only one of the party. And Sukuk, like every other Islamic finance, any other Islamic finance tool, has to the underlying core value. It must be Sharia compliant, and it's always about profit sharing and also the risk sharing, just like every other Islamic finance tool. So summarily, Sukuk is Sharia compliant, and it's an alternative to the conventional bonds. It's based on risk sharing, asset backing, and riba is prohibited, which is interest, unlike the conventional bonds where interest is a burden on the parties, or one of the parties. They're rapidly growing tool. It's a rapidly growing tool in the world, and it's an aspect of Islamic finance, and it's a tool, Islamic finance tool, that is widely accepted. People are getting to some parts of the world now, they issue and they do these bonds, these Islamic bonds. So we can say that it is attractive because of its ethical and social an ethical and social responsible investment, because of its risk sharing, asset backing, and the prohibition of interest, which could be a burden. Why did we carry out this research? So the essence of this study is, first, is to examine the theoretical foundation of Sukuk Islamic securities, and also try to differentiate it from the conventional bonds. We also highlighted the challenges in Sukuk issuance and application. And lastly, we will provide insights for scholars. Apart from providing insights for scholars, it's also a contribution. The research is a contribution to the scholarly work on Sukuk, and we hope it will be beneficial to the policymaker and practitioners on how to improve uh, on the issuance and application of sukuk. Methods used in this research is qualitative. Uh, we can say it's an analytical research of a literature review. All literature papers were reviewed, both quantitative and qualitative research paper. No matter the methods, as far as on sukuk bond, it was analytical research based. Data source were from Google Scholar, ResearchGate, Semantic Scholar, and other key and notable journal websites. Then the inclusion criteria was research paper from 2008 to 2023, and this paper were sukuk focused, even though the paper is an Islamic finance research paper, but if its scope of study was not on sukuk, this was excluded. So exclusion criteria were books were not included, newspapers were excluded, then any research paper before 2008 or I wouldn't say after 2008, because this review paper started from 2023. Okay, and the research was in 2023-2024. Okay, so any research paper pre 2008 studies and any unrelated works were excluded from this, and the total research paper reviewed were 34. Okay, so the first finding, okay, before we move to the findings of this research paper, we try to categorize the aspect of research, because there are a lot. 34 papers for sukuk was a lot. Okay, so we try to categorize them into team. We have team for Sharia compliance, issuance and applications, and regulation. I think we kind of group them into 4 teams. Okay, and as we move on the slides, you're going to see how we've categorized them. So the first finding, which is Sharia compliance, it was about sukuk legitimacy, and it was shown in all of these research papers. We read about this, that it depends on true ownership and asset backing. If there is no true ownership to the vessels, the certificate does not reflect, or it does not give the value of the asset. It's not legit. Okay, then we have issues on asset-backed sukuk that were criticized, because the sukuk has to be asset-backed. Okay, it's one of the fundamentals, and this is to ensure risk sharing. Okay, but then this aspect was not well implemented. Okay, they were not well implemented. There were criticism here and there about how it is not well implemented, and they were not some of these aspects of the asset-backed sukuk were not Sharia compliant. However, a lot of research papers also talk about the IOFI, which is the Auditing Organization of Islamic Finance. This organization ensures that all of these bonds issuing, this bonds issue must be compliant to Sharia. I mean, so that we could say it's halal, not haram. So there was a lot of emphasis on genuine asset transfer for compliance. So this brings us to key finding 2, and this key finding 2 was research paper which were grouped on the research on challenges in issuance, means how these bond certificates are given out. From the article, if you read the research article, you see with well stated in it that during decline. There is decline in issuance during global financial crisis, especially when we have this hike in oil prices and the irregularities that happens during this financial crisis affects them. So we can say that uh, in this angle that the Islamic bonds, okay, sukuk, is similar to the conventional bonds in these regas, because the conventional bonds are also affected by global financial crisis. The sukuk is not immune against this challenge also. The other barriers are limited liquidity, lack of standardization, and high cost of services, high cost of everything. I mean, in the insurance and the management and everything about Sukuku. Then we also have exposure to global economic volatility. Apart from other global financial crises, there are other economic volatility that can just occur. I mean, unexpected, okay, global economic turnout that we expose these sukuk bonds to high risk bonds. Then we have key finding 3. This is in regards to ownership and governance. It was well researched and findings shows that sukuk holders must have legal ownership of assets and not debt backed like the conventional bonds. This is to prevent minimizing risk and also give a fair like every other Islamic finance tool to ensure fairness. Okay, then many of the case studies shows that risks when ownership is unclear, when there is no clear ownership in the certificate issued in the sukuk bond issued. It brings lack of clarity, and when there is lack of clarity, hard gara sets in, which is uncertainty. And Islamically, it's advised that we should stay away from things that are very unclear or certain in terms of businesses, because this is to avoid facing greater risk, bigger risk later, both for the investor and the originator. Because when there is clarity in the partnership, it makes a lot of things easier. Risk is minimized and fairness is ensured. So we also have co-ownership mode there when it comes to ownership and governance. This co-ownership mode there is just, it helps reduce agency costs. Means when this sukuk bond certificate is issued, means that the certificate is owned, I mean the asset backing certificate is owned by 2 people, and when this happens, it means the cost that comes with it, the agency cost, just like the profits, it's going to be owned and shared by these same co-owners. Moving on with all of these research articles, okay, I will quickly talk about key findings 4, which has to do with regulatory and enforcement. This key finding for regulation and enforcement talks about how IOF are putting a lot of effort to set standards, but the enforcement is fragmented. They still do not have a definite system or structure in place that will ensure that these set standards are complied to. This is because Sharia, which is the sukuk, are Sharia compliance, and Sharia is interpreted differently in different regions of the world. If you read the article, you see how we gave example like Malaysia, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, how they interpret their Sharia differently, and the way they've interpreted it, that is how they comply. So this has made the IOF face a lot of challenges. IOF is the auditing organization of Islamic finance that ensure some standards are set and there's compliance. But in these regards, in terms of Sukuk, with a lot of research paper has shown that they are yet to be able to 100% meet up in ensuring enforcement. Okay, then another challenge with this regulatory and enforcement is that because there is differences in the way nations interpret their Sharia, this has brought about ununified regulation, and this brings about uncertainty because it's difficult for people to now have to be convinced that uh, that their bonds are safe. Okay, I mean they're not going to have face greater risk in investing in Sukuk bonds. Okay, so I'll take you back one slide. Okay, so overall, in all categories we've discussed about these research papers, about the governance, insurance, compliance, and the the four category, which is the thing we discussed about, there was one common thing about the literature. There's something very common in this, without any regard to the scope of study. Whatever scope the researcher has focused on, there is one common thing in all of the literature. The first is that Sukuk bond is true risk sharing central to Sukuk. True risk sharing is a core thing, is a core aspect of Sukuk credibility. If there is no risk sharing, just like every other Islamic finance too, if there is no risk sharing in Sukuk, we cannot say it is credible. The asset-backed models more compliant and resilient. When Sukuks that are the ownership are well defined, the asset is well backed, and the ownership are well defined, they are more compliant and resilient to withstanding the risk that comes with it. Then Sukuk is very vulnerable to credit risk in crisis. Okay, then the global interest is growing, even despite the challenges and the barriers. It's a growing aspect of Islamic finance that every other part of the world, apart from the ones that have already embraced it, are interested to embrace. So this is the common insights from literature, how we've the themes, I mean the category we looked into, and the core insight, the core findings out there. First is the Sukuk structure, which I talked about, Sukuk structure and Sharia compliance. The literatures that talks about it, summarily, their core insights are it must reflect genuine ownership and risk sharing. Then the challenges in Sukuk, insurance, talks about a lot. Consistently, the focus is the legal cost and standardization barriers. Then we have the ownership and Sharia compliance. This is about the insights about many structures are deviating from the Sharia requirements. Okay, and if this happen, the further they deviate from this, the less halal it becomes. Okay, and the bigger the risks these investors will face. Then we have enforcement and regulatory challenges, which is the final part of the categories, the themes. So the core insight for this was that enforcement remains fragmented and inconsistent. So conclusively, we can say Sukuk is promising, is a promising Sharia compliant, and it's a very good alternative to the conventional bonds. It's very important. The aspect of asset backing is very important. It actually makes it Sharia compliant and also enables the risk sharing. Then the challenges remain, however, even though we have all of this in place, all the aspect of it in place, there are still challenges in the regulation, which we've already mentioned on the ununified set standards by regions because of the way they interpret Sharia differently. Then the cost, okay, service charges, the cost. Sometimes it's a lot for others for people to, it's a huge burden, even though it's without riba, okay, because sukuks are riba free interest, but the service cost, it's also a challenge. It's their vulnerabilities, how they are not immune against economic instability, just like the conventional bonds. So we are recommending uh, research on involving sukuk structures. I mean, all the future research should focus more on how sukuk can be involved. I mean, how it can become more competitive with the conventional bonds, creating more awareness and more education, not just awareness. Awareness, people get it to know it, but do they actually know how it operates? Can they be part of the investors, or can they be part of the managers? All of these has to be researched about, okay? And regulation is also a very important aspect of it, because this is to ensure that it's Sharia compliance and it meets all its core values. Then for the policymaker, we hope they can strengthen legal and regulatory framework, whether by the IOV standards, or however they've interpreted their sharia their sharia laws in regards to sukuk. I hope they can all come to compromise and have a standard set standard which everyone can comply to. This strengthens the sukuk bonds too, and gives people, investors, the confidence to invest in it, okay? Then we have practitioners, which are the managers. They should adopt best practices in risk management by just ensuring that it's Sharia compliant. And when this is achieved, I think a lot of the things will be, challenges will be solved. And the core value is not missed, it's not neglected. Then we have promote standardization. We should also try to promote standardization to boost investors' confidence. So thank you for the time.